Because what Rasulullah tells you is always true. Okay? This is in search of Laylatul Qadr. Okay? I'm looking, this is all the work I was doing. I've lived all over the world. This is in the UAE, 2005. Now, this I'm looking to see in the morning, and you can see this is at 6:50, 30 hours now. On this morning, there's rays in the sky. Who knows, what are the signs that we know that Laylatul Qadr has actually taken place?
Calm morning.
In the calm morning, but what is particular about the sun? It has no rays. That's right. Good. But now I'm looking, and this is important because I've got all these mornings. I'm out with my camera, trying, and I've done it in India and Africa. Now, this is on the 4th of the 11th, 2005, 6:25 at Satwa in Dubai. Now, what's important about this is, look, you see, the sun, no rays. Okay, no rays. And then eventually it climbs up. So you know where this place is. Now, what's more important is that people were told that it was Eid tomorrow. How many came to pray here when they knew that, and did they pray Taraweeh on the night when they say the moon has been sighted? Everybody missed Laylatul Qadr, and they missed it for several years before that, because the previous year, 2004, I have the pictures here. You may see that, this is a signal from a digital camera with filter. That's a typical 364 days of any year, that's the signal you get. Except, after Laylatul Qadr, see that? No spikes. Okay? So, what causes this event? And Rasulullah said, the angels descend, and that is why they act as a mashrabiyah, like a screen, till the late morning. Every year, for 1400 years, you can prove to any white man, any Khawaja, anybody, that the Quran is true, and angels exist. Forget Robbie Williams. Forget Robbie Williams. This is the fact. So, this shows, but the tragedy is that Muslims have lost the plot. We've sold the plot. And this gentleman down here wanted to ask a question. Yeah.
Well, my question, I'll go back to the source of the lecture or the topic, where we talk about Somali power.
Yes.
Are you trying to justify taking arms is the solution?
No.
That's the first question. Second question, right? The Gulf spill, the oil spill that been happening in America, it's been happening in Nigeria for almost 30 years.
Yes.
Going to the media and let the world know about it. Will you advise this audience to get to the media more than using force to solve the problem?
First of all, you've got to discount much of what we're told, because they want you to believe certain things. They want you to have the false impression. Why is this not on every newscast in Ramadan or after Laylatul Qadr? Because NASA, I've spoken to Farouk Al-Baz in NASA about the splitting of the moon and things like that. But this event should be highlighted. It would prove the point. You could argue and destroy the arguments. Why does this happen 11 days the next year earlier? Why is it happening? Nobody's ever raised it. I've never seen it on any program.
Yeah, but my point is, the Somali take arms to fight.
Right, but what did Napoleon? Listen to what Napoleon said. It is a natural. It is an inevitability. It is an inevitability. If you deprive people, then I've been in Nigeria twice. I've been to Bayelsa State. I've seen the wasting of the gas. But what is the problem of insurrection there with King Alfred de Spiff, who was a military governor? What is the problem in that state of insurrection? Why are they having? He wants to take every AK-47 and replace it with a welding torch or a 9-iron, because he's a keen golfer. The point is that this is a natural reaction. If you are deprived, Allah has provided everything. Why are people deprived? They become angry and they don't understand. So it's automatic. This is human nature. The injustice, the zulm. So we're not saying that it's right, but as we've seen in European history, but all the wars have been between warring tribes, and it's usually about indebtedness. They don't get one penny in Nigeria from any of the oil or gas that's exported. So the people resent that. And it's natural. Why would they live in poverty when there's no necessity? So it is something that happens with people. And eventually, like with Rasulullah, eventually with the Quraysh, he had to fight them. But first of all, you've got to go to the beginning of the problem. It is the waste that's gone there, destroying the fishing, creating a problem. And our economics built on, if you go to any university, they only teach you taxation and borrowing. They do not teach you how to create kun fayakun, create the money, spend it into circulation, retire it through taxation. All this event I can show you that's happening in this recession can be solved within 24 hours, with 48 hours. Because it's all about controlling you hear about inflation on every newscast, and inflation. This is not, it's bogus. The inflation they don't want is in our economy, because did anybody say, oh, if we give the bankers 47 trillion, it might create inflation? Nobody said that. So if we had that in our economy, everybody would be very happy. So the issue is the battle and the injustice creates resentment in people. And it happened, we had 2 world wars in Europe, in this country, but it was all created by the banks, and people then resented it, and they turned to arms. They'd become desperate. And you've heard about Robin Hood. I mean, these are just pirates. We had the same pirates, but it was all caused by indebtedness. So there's a cause and an effect. But this is the most fantastic thing. Every year you can bring Peter Hitchens or whoever you want to bring in here and show, and we should also look to our young children. Every Ramadan we should be looking at the moon, looking at the sun, and saying, has Laylatul Qadr occurred? Because we can check from Riyadh or Jeddah or anywhere where we can see the sun. So, but this is a proof, 100%. Most Europeans will fall. I mean, I've shown it to people. They've just been completely. It destroys their argument and gives them reason to think the Quran is true.
Yes, sir. Dawood good. Yeah.
May
Alaikum salam.
Allah continue to honor you. My question is just that all the things we've learned or we've been told tonight, everything seems to have been turned on its head. Yeah? And I don't know whether it's hadith, but there is a saying that if Allah gives you knowledge, it should bring you closer to Him. And I can see that you've been given some knowledge. But what I want to know is, when did you take the Shahada? Did you take it before, when you were a non-Muslim, or is it after you became a Muslim? Because to me it seems as if your work started many years ago. So I'm just curious.
Okay. Thank you for the question. First of all, I made my Shahada in Newark, New Jersey. The story is, in a brief, in 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah. Oh, right. Well, yeah. Well, I'm going to leave this with Maulana, but this is an article done in our local paper, and it says the remarkable life of David Pidcock. I used to be a singer, and I worked with Engelbert, and I was in the music business. I've been in the fashion business. I've raced motorcycles. I've done everything. We built 12 mosques in Saudi Arabia with Obama's brothers. We had trouble with him, but Kubra and Kiblitain and all those mosques we built. But this is, so my background has come from the very extreme opposite, from singing in nightclubs and being in business. I was involved in building machines and everything. But I found that the system of the banks are the biggest criminals on the face of the earth. So I was defrauded by 3 banks. Midland Bank, which is now HSBC, Barclays and Lloyds, over a long period of time. But I didn't realise that since 1828, banks in England can commit fraud legally. This is the system of Hizbul Shaitan. That is why we're in a mess. And we've had to fight everybody, enslave everybody, including our own people. So they say the first time it's happenstance, the second time it's coincidence, and the third time it's open warfare. So I knew that there was something wrong with the system. Having been defrauded the third time, I was driving through Sheffield, and I said, God, there's got to be a better way. Literally. God, there's got to be a better way. The next day, I was delivering some parts for a machine. I went into a shop, engineering works, and somebody came in and said, oh, do you want to go to Saudi Arabia? I said, well, can I go home and get change first? So that would be the first. And so I ended up going to Saudi Arabia on the first day of Ramadan in 1975. We didn't know anything. We just got on the plane. We went to Petromin to help them with a refinery problem. And we went to meet the refinery manager, a man called Mansour Sahemi, rahimahullah, a very nice man, from Medina. And he was laughing, and he was literally crying. And he said, I'm terribly sorry. And he said he'd just sent a telex, before fax machines and internet. He said, I'd sent this telex in the morning to Houston, United Oil Products, saying, asphalt project held up due to Ramadan. Return telex. Fire Ramadan, get someone who can do the job. So our first encounter with Ramadan was this guy who was holding up the asphalt project. So that's the first we knew. I mean, part we know from the Crusades and the stories of Richard and all that, and Robin Hood. But we couldn't drink, and we couldn't. I was smoking in those days, and so we went from the plane to the refinery, then straight back to the Red Sea Palace in Jeddah. And then we got there, and they wouldn't serve us because it was time for suhoor. So we couldn't eat in the day, and we couldn't eat. So we think Ramadan should be fired because he's holding up our dinner. So we ended up trying to get something to eat, and then behind there was a voice, hey, you guys, you must be limeys. So I turned around, and there was a man, very big man, beard, speaking with this Bronx, or it was New York accent. And he said, join me. He said, I'll order extra food. I'll explain. So he explained what the problem was. So that was fine. I spoke with him for 2 days solid. And then I noticed he kept getting up and going to pray. And I thought, I was interested. Because I'd said, God, there's got to be a better way. So I was open to the idea. And the third day there, a family came who were obviously British into the hotel, a man called Mike Mullin, whose father was the head of the prison service in Northern Ireland. And Mike was running a company called General Agencies Corporation, who were having problems with a big project, and he said, well, we're in serious trouble. So the Sheikh, Kamil Wadood was his name, from Newark, 24 Bayview Avenue, said, oh, maybe my wife can help you. And he said, right, is she a civil engineer? He said, no, but she can probably help. So he said, write down the problem. He wrote down the problem, and she apparently gave him an answer to read. She said, don't keep the paper. And then the next day I left to come back to England. 2 weeks later I go back to Jeddah, and Mike invited me for dinner. And we said, that lady solved our problem. She saved my job, She said, the problem is in the water. So the next day he got up, went to work. They were having deliveries from the Jeddah, the desalination plant, to wash the aggregates. So he followed the trucks. 5 of them went to the desalination plant. 3 of them went to the Red Sea. And they were just sucking up seawater and delivering it to the aggregate washing plant. And she said, we would never have thought of that, but she gave us the clue. And in this book, this red book of mine, she gave me the answer to a particular question, not that one, the satanic voices. I gave her a question, and she answered something that's been bothering Freemasons about the meaning of certain words that they use. So she gave me answers. And from that, I went around America with them, and by the time we got back to Newark, I just said, well, I know this is right. So instinctively, I'd never read the Quran, but I just observed and said, This is true, instinctively. Instinctive. Never read the Quran, but I knew it was true, and what they were doing. So that's how it happened. Now, people, you see, if you look on the internet, Google David Pitcock, the splitting of the moon. I saw a program on BBC. It was ITV or BBC, with a man called Michael Burke, and he did the NASA Apollo space shot. James Burke. He wrote several books, The Day the Universe Changed and others. But he interviewed 2 NASA scientists, and what was interesting, he said, was it political to land men on the moon? Couldn't you have sent robots? He said, yes. But one experiment they did required men, and it was called the Thumper experiment. And that was when they planted seismographic charges on the moon. Like when you're experimenting or looking for oil, then you do soundings, and so you have an explosion, and then you read the signals. Now, one of the scientists said this, and this was 3 or 4 years after I'd done my Shahada in Europe. He said, the signal was as if the moon was split at some point and joined together. It was as if, but nobody knew that. But when I heard that, I thought, wow, that's fantastic. So people say, I heard this, and I jumped up in my chair and said, that's what. No, it was after. But the instinctive thing is, nafs, your heart tells you. And here I am.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, no. Oh, this brother, yes.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you, because I've been looking into some work from Imam Hussein.
Yes, in West Indies.
Yeah, Gough and Magog.
Yeah, he's very, very good.
Yeah.
And he is part of this. This was the Reba conference, and this Imam Hussein, he is a banker by profession, and his stuff is extremely good. I have to say that I was very impressed.
So, because you showed the map of Israel.
Yes.
What they want it to be.
Yes.
So my question was, couldn't like the Arab people give them what they want? Give them the map the way they want it? Because isn't there a hadith that says that once the river Galilee dries up,
Yes.
then you get the showing up of the Dajjal?
No, well, but this is what the brother was mentioning earlier on. We have to go and re-evaluate the interpretations that have been put on in the past.
Yeah.
So we have to look and say, well, does this fit with the evidence of history? Because if something happens, and I know that when Rasulullah says something, or the Quran says something, absolutely it's fact. It will happen and it will be true. But then you have people, as the brother was saying, some people had falsified accounts, and some are weak hadith and other things. But the Imam Hussein in the Caribbean, his lecture on riba in this conference was extremely good, along with the brilliant one by the Etsu from Nigeria, who gave a brilliant address. I think he's going to switch the camera off unless we ask him.
I have a question. On the news last time, a couple of weeks ago, like November, December, they had some events that happened in New Zealand about the mines and the miners and all that.
There was one in Brazil, wasn't there, where the miners were trapped?
Yeah, and the one in New Zealand whereby.
Oh yes, the explosion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Is that event prophesied by Muhammad Sallallahu?
I don't know, but I mean that would be but it may be, but we don't have access to that.
Because they are looking for gold or something.
The things that are major, that are clearly happening now, are the building of the arrogantly tall buildings, and the hadith that is sahih, there's no doubt, when men commit adultery with men and women with women, human blood has no value. When the barefoot and the Bedouins compete with one another building arrogantly tall buildings, and when the high wind, look for high winds and earthquakes, and events following one another as quickly as a necklace when the beads, the string is cut. We're already and a slave girl will give birth to her mistress. So the events are that a mother will give birth to somebody else's child, and she will bear that child for her. So all these are the prophets given us. There's so much already that we have.
On that issue, you know, there's the hadith says that some rivers will reveal amount of gold.
Yeah, you mean there's the Euphrates?
Yeah.
But not to go there. People will come there. I think this must relate to the rivers of gold. Have to be related to oil, because this is now worth more than gold when you look at it. And Kuwait and Iraq is the place where it was first discovered, and this was the system that. And Rasulullah said, "Do not put your hand, do not go there." And you look at all the wars, and people will come and fight, and only 1 in 100 will survive. But everybody came believing that they would be the one. So, yes, I think this was sorry.
Just before, how much longer? 5 minutes would it be okay? Okay, so we have that's number 1, and then have number 2, number 3, and number 4.
Not 1 hour each.
No, please just ask a question. Ask a question. Don't start making long diagnosis or explanations. Just ask a short question, please.
Basically, when I was listening to brother, I was thinking about the topic and different parts of the topic that we are touching, which I found quite heavy. And
Heavy.
yes, in terms of research and in terms of academia and all of this. And my question is, obviously you have a kind of research center or...
No, I'm just like you. I left school at 15, I have no education. I left school when I was 15.
And no, I'm talking about now. I mean, the hadiths you mentioned in the presentation, I've come across majority of them, and I'm sure many brothers have read these hadiths, but we never thought about making these connections.
Ah, yes.
And I'm sure many well-qualified scholars, ulama in hadith, they have repeatedly read and come across these hadiths, but they never made these connections. My question is, isn't it you and many other brothers who may understand the topic like you explained to us now, to open a research center or a center where ordinary ulama can come and study with you, and they can then convey the message to people?
Yes. Let's David. Because he's part Somali, he's going to say,
Go on then.
Oh, right, so, David.
What is the point? The point of the talk is why does Dawood come halfway down the UK to give a talk here, alhamdulillah, to give us knowledge? What is the point of acquiring knowledge and not acting on it? This is a part of the balance in Islam. There's no point in studying hadith, in studying Quran, and not applying it in your life. Yeah, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he says that there's no point in studying and not applying it in your life. What is this talk going to do to change your life? What are you going to do now with the result of the knowledge that's been given to you? We've been told that the system in this place has corrupted virtually every nation on the planet. But what can we do now to make a difference, not only locally but globally? Yeah? You can think globally but act locally. How can we change? What is the one thing in this country that we say, alhamdulillah, we have? What is it? What is it that allows us to be a Muslims in this country?
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech. What else?
Media.
Meeting or media?
Media.
Media, okay. Something more basic, much more basic, fundamental.
Dawah.
Why can we be Muslims here, practicing Muslims? Huh?
Peace.
Knowledge. But why? Practicing Muslims, what do you need to do to survive as a Muslim? Pray. What else? Think. You have to be active. It's no good being passive. The whole point of change is you have to be actively involved in your mentation, in the brain. There's no point otherwise. The point is, oh, we need to eat, we need halal food. Is there halal food in this country?
No.
No. Why?
Yes.
Some say yes, some say no. Okay, one of the biggest debates at the present moment is what is halal and what is haram. You must inquire it's not just la ilaha illallah. Yeah, it's not just Allahu Akbar. It's not just the cutting of the throat. There are all kinds of conditions that we have to do with the environment, in looking after animals, in taking care of their welfare. Islam is based on helping the weakest in society. That's not just human beings. We have a responsibility to the environment and to the animals' welfare that we have, the domestic animals, not wild animals, domestic animals. Yeah? We have responsibilities to them. And one of the biggest things, and this is just a suggestion, I'm not telling you to do it, it's a suggestion. Go and ask your butcher, where does this chicken come from? What kind of life did it have? How was it looked after? How was it brought to death? Because if the conditions are not fulfilled from the beginning to the end, it is not halal. No, it's not. You cannot just say, as Dawood was saying, there is no other God but God, but not fulfilling it. This is the deception. And the deception is within us. And as men, we are responsible not only for ourselves, but for the immediate family and for the greater family. So it's only by doing local pressure on your butcher, on the people that say, oh, we've certified this is halal. It's only by doing local things, make sure, be active. It takes one brother with one car to go from A to Z, to wake up and see where these chickens are coming from. Where are the lambs coming from? Where are the sheep coming from? Wake up. Please. Alhamdulillah, you seem to be very active. You're having a lot of talks. But make it active. Make sure it works for you. Because it's not until the consumers, if you start talking about marketing, media, that it's not until the consumers start to make a voice that the providers will change.
So where's the answer of this question?
Where's
the answer of this question?
You had a question? Yeah. Please make a short question.
Okay, so
The answer of this question.
So the answer to his question
I
about...
think what you're saying is, you say, asked about starting a research center.
Oh, right, yes.
And what
okay, so what I'm...
It wasn't about research only. It's about if, I mean...
Applied research.
Yeah. Thing is, we have ulama, hadith, ulama, sirah, fiqh, all of these. You're not making us to mistrust them or not to trust them, no.
No.
What you're telling us as a brother, as a concerned brother, is we need to put together the bits and pieces of our deen, and then understand in line with what's happening now. Now, I found quite difficult to basically put that back to the ordinary ulama and say, look, this is what happened, this is what the Prophet said, and it's happening now, and it's there. For example, one thing in your speech was that the child is already, not physically, but fi'liyan, which is practically, it's already there. That looks to me very controversial when you go back to the ulama and say, is the child will be a physical character with a kafir on his head, or is it a scenario, or is it a phenomena that's starting from somewhere to somewhere?
Right.
So these things need to go back to the actual ulama, and you sit with them, and then you may make a kind of forum where you can digest more.
I accept what you're saying. But then I'll come to the point of when Murabaha was introduced into the Sudan. I went to Sudan many times, and I got them the first refinery, and I flew it in from the Russian aircraft to get a refinery there for the Sudan. Okay. They introduced Murabaha, which is actually Moribaha. there's more riba in murabaha. Okay? Because the money that is used in murabaha is not money that is put in the bank by the Muslims. It is money that is created out of, it is mutafifun, it is fraud. And the whole thing, this is why the barakah goes out. You have Al-Barakah Bank with Dr. Hamdi, but I call it La Barakah Bank. Because wherever it's gone, it has destroyed the whole society. Because it's like injecting yourself with AIDS, financial AIDS, which creates acquired investment deficiency syndrome. That's what the problem is. So the ulama were given, they actually gave the ruling that it was, the murabaha was okay, but they didn't know that the banks were committing fraud, and why eventually inflation and the problems relating to the economy were caused by the fact that the banks were being dishonest and they were destroying the Sudan from within. So while the ulama can make a judgment on the issue of providing they have, and Turabi, Hassan al-Turabi, who I fought with on many occasions, he said we have the salami, we have one piece and we show this to the ulama, but you don't see the rest of the salami. And this is the problem. Ulama are there and they can read and they have, I mean, we don't have Arabic, but you have to use common sense or fitra, and then you see, well, if that's happening, then there must be a cause for it. So the point is that providing the ulama have information, then the ulama council, they cancelled murabaha once they knew it was causing the problems for the Sudan. And as David touched upon the subject, I left school when I was 15. Sorry, I'll come to you. When I was 15. And my father died, I had to go to work. So I left school at 15, and I also didn't know that I was dyslexic. I couldn't do maths, I couldn't read. Couldn't. So they thought I was stupid. I probably had. I was, but the point is that you start to observe and look. When you have a difficulty, you start to use other faculties. So the issue is the ulama need to know the whole story. They just don't want to be given a slice and make a fatwa on this. We need the whole picture. And they are extremely valuable. But if they haven't done the joined up pieces in 1400 years, and in the events that occurred in Palestine and are happening in Al-Quds now, what is more hellish than that for the people in Palestine? It is the Dajjal system, those who lie. Mark Regev, that idiot from the Israeli, he's a liar. I mean, he's the most obscene liar. But that is the nature of the system, it lies. Or the whole legal system is a lie. Everything is a lie, except Islam. This gentleman there, so, yes, sir.
No, we have a
oh, sorry. I'm sorry, you're the, right?
Very short one, yeah?
Just short sentence.
Yeah, short one, yeah? Islamic Bank.
Yes.
What?
Could we have one?
The ones we have already here, Islamic Bank, the big test is haram, yeah?
Yes.
What's the truth behind them? And short one, yeah, Al-Qaeda, they talk about Al-Qaeda. What should we understand about Al-Qaeda?
Al-Qaeda, all right, which one first? Right, the banks. We don't have Islamic banks. We have, as the gentleman who was a banker for 35 years, a Muslim, he said Islamic banks is only a marketing tool. It is, what was the word, David, that he used? It was, it's a brand. It's a brand. So, and you pay more in interest, because if you went straight to HSBC, you would get probably, the rate will be two points lower than you get from the Islamic bank. The Islamic banks are a complete and utter fraud. There is nothing halal about them. You have halal khinzir, in other words. And on Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda means it is a designation in the CIA for operatives. It wasn't created by Al or his brother Qaeda. It was created by the CIA, which stands for counterfeit Islamic activities.
The stories they keep showing us on TV.
Yeah.
What should we...
Yes, but it's a lie. It's a deception. Only the truth is what's in the Quran, what the Prophet tells you, and what you see. 9/11. Look, let me just come to this one out. This book was published in 1938. All right? 1938. propaganda in the next war. 7 volumes, gas warfare. This is propaganda. How? We will deceive the people. All right. In this book it says we must get Japan to attack America. You heard of Pearl Harbor?
Yeah,
It was all planned, and it's in this book from 1938, published here in London. We would get Japan to attack America. Also, we would promise the American Jews Palestine as we promised the German Jews Palestine in 1917. The Balfour Declaration. Oh, sorry. Will it? The Balfour Declaration was declared in 1917 when we were losing the war, and the Balfour Declaration was offered to the German Jews, and the German Jews defeated Germany from within. Now, this to say that there is no conspiracy, it's in here how we will do it. In 1939, remember this is before the war commences, on the 25th of April, Senator Nye of North Dakota read into the congressional record extracts from this book, and he's saying to persuade the United States the next time will be much more difficult and more difficult to succeed. It will need a definite threat to America, a threat moreover which will have to be brought home by propaganda to every citizen before America takes up arms in an external quarrel. The position will naturally and considerably be eased if Japan were involved, and this might and probably would bring America in without further ado. At any rate, it would be a natural and obvious object of our propagandists to achieve this, just as during the Great War they succeeded in embroiling the United States with Germany. That's on the congressional record before the commencement of the war. They knew about it, so why did it happen? Because all that's necessary for the triumph of evil is that good men remain silent and do nothing. So that's the evidence to the point is, it's all planned. 9/11 and the Pan Am 103, the Libyans, the bomb was put on in Heathrow. The evidence from Ray Manley, the guard at Heathrow, showed in his report that the break-in was at Pan Am's desk several hours before the aircraft took off. The bomb was put on in London, and it's there. But the evidence was not given to the trial. He was not called to give evidence. The whole thing is a lie. This is a lying system. This is the system of Dajjal. This is it. You're in the middle of it.
And one of the biggest things that Dow is trying to get you to click into is that you need to be active. You need to be proactive in holding your corner, because if you don't, if you haven't noticed since the mid-1990s, the erosion of civil liberties in this country and the laws have been eroded more and more and more, and in the US has been, the Patriotic Act has even been stated by ex-CIA people in the last couple of weeks. They say it is more of a Nazi system than Germany put in itself in 45.
Yeah.
So the thing is to be proactive. What can I do? We all know that this place is upside down. What can I do to make a change locally? Start with consumerism. Start with education. Start with here. When you're teaching Tajweed, what is the point of being able to recite the Quran from Al-Fatiha down to Al-Nas if you don't know anything about it? I've asked almost every single Asian Muslim that I've come across. I said, how many times have you read the Quran in a language that you understand? Doesn't need to be English. Could be Urdu, could be Salah, could be the language of your ethnicity. Have you read it? Even people brought up second, third generation say, oh yeah, maybe an ayah here, an ayah there. Yeah, a couple of times I've seen Yusuf Ali copy. But it's not until you start being proactive in yourself. The first charity is yourself. Then your immediate family, then the wider family, then the community. So until you start changing yourself, why should Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala start changing our situation?
Now,
Don't be walking sleep. Be walking active. Don't walk into the system of Dajjal.
Right, the good news. Can I just give the good news?
Yeah. Okay.
This might answer a few. Now this is from Surah 10, Yunus, Jonah. Surah Yunus, yes. And this is, remember this, when Rasulullah said, when Dajjal fails, to bring the whole world under his control through his machinations and systems of false belief, the Christians will gather under 80 banners to try and bring peace in the world, but will betray the world and bring about its destruction. That's what we know from the hadith that are not in dispute. But of course, as happened before, we saw the snow. Everything came to a stop in London. All Allah has to do is to make it snow or to flood, and everything could be paralysed within 48 hours, with 24 hours. But this is what Allah says. The life of this world is like water which we send down from the sky, and which is absorbed by the plants of the earth, from which men and cattle eat. But when the earth has taken on its finest appearance and looks beautiful, and its people think they have it under their control, then by night or day our command comes to it, and we convert it into a field of stubble, as if nothing had existed the day before. Thus we make plain our revelations for those who reflect. So the floods in Australia, the snow, all the things, the earthquakes, that Allah can change. He could completely paralyze this. Did you see what happened at Heathrow? Yes, absolutely. So, but the point is, the good news is it's in the book. It will happen, but we have to do our bit. Whatever we can do, as David's saying, then we must try and do it. But first of all, it begins with ourselves. When we point the finger, there are always three pointing back at us when we blame somebody.
Okay, Abdulaziz, Abdulaziz, and then you have Abbas
yes, because
there,
he's been very
and then you review, inshallah, asking questions. No.
Just my question is the question as well, because
It's already been asked. Jazakallah khair. Abbas, can you have your question then, please?
Yeah, my question goes back to what you said earlier concerning the night of limit because actually.
Yes.
What are we supposed to come to the mosque and take a part of what they do in the mosque in the night of the electric country? And after then, what impact does that take in our lives? After Allah has programmed everything and created everything and cut off everything, what impact, what reflection does it reflect on our lives?
Sorry, are you saying that as Allah knows everything, what's the point in us doing anything?
Yeah, obviously it comes to that because He's already cut off. Whether you work or not, Allah has already ordained and cut off.
Ah, right.
So you need to go out and work. That's why He said, look for something to survive.
But why did the Prophet say, when he was asked, why do you pray when you're guaranteed paradise?
Sorry?
He said, when he was asked, why do you continue to pray when you're already promised paradise? He said, prayer is not a punishment, it's a privilege. It's a privilege. These are the things we should do as just a matter of gratitude. And although we know that Allah knows everything, He hasn't given us He hasn't prevented us from doing things, and it's down to our actions and our intentions that we either get better, and it's just a matter of courtesy. It's good manners. So.
Jazakallah khair, I know we've become very enthusiastic, inshallah, but time has really
invite us back.
What we can do is, inshallah, we can invite Dawood, we can invite him back. First of all, just to thank him very much for coming all the way from Sheffield, to come all the way to London, to Greenwich, and when he got here, he went looking for Griffin Road. May Allah reward you, inshallah, and may Allah reward you all for sitting and benefiting from this. Next week, inshallah, the lecture will be on education, and we'll have the first.
It is 10:20.